Macam yang paling panas.
Jangan lupa.
Assalamualaikum Pak Sofwan. Mahmud Nur, Associate Professor.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Apa kabar Pak Sofwan?
Not bad, thanks. Prof, how are you?
Yes, fine. I think today we are.
Sihat ya?
Dengar suaranya.
Dengar. Cuma a bit of echo, I think. Maybe because of the mic.
Yes,
I think
yes,
so. We have some of the echo.
I will do this echo factor. Echo, yeah. Okay. How about this? How you doing? This echo is okay.
No, still echoes. I think maybe the I'm not sure about the speaker though, or maybe the mic there. Perhaps because there are two or more microphones being used at the same time. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Because in our classroom there is no facility well. Just we use partial audio system. I'm really sorry if the sound is really clear. But the student is okay. I think depend on the Mr. Subhat. When you talk about this, your material is okay. I think this is enough for us. Yes.
Apa? Dah. Suaranya putus-putus mas. Apa? Eco. Sampai bertemu aja. Masih. Tes lagi. Tes.
Belum ya masih. Masih ya. Jadi Eko, Ekonya. Ekonya gimana? Itu Pak.
Oh, sih. Coba asam.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good evening to our respected keynote speaker, distinguished guest speaker, and honorable lecturers, and beloved participants. Welcome to the International Guest Lecture proudly presented by Management Graduate Program, Faculty of Business Law and Social Science, Universitas Muhammadiyah Sidoarjo. Tonight we will be discussing an important topic published with honor, avoiding the pitfalls of plagiarism and misconduct. Let us begin by acknowledging the presence of our honorable speaker, a keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Andes Riono, MM, CIQ, and LGSA, Head of Management Graduate Program, Faculty Business Law and Social Science, Universitas Muhammadiyah Sidoarjo, and the guest speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Safwan Muhammad Nur, CQRFTM, MMEM RFP Syariah RFP, Faculty of Business, Economic and Social Development, University of Malaysia, Terengganu. Thank you for your valuable time and willingness to share your knowledge with us. And the agenda overview. Today's event will proceed as follows: an opening remarks, keynote speech, guest lecture presentation, Q&A session, and closing and group documentation. To officially open our, we invite Professor Dr. Andes Riono, MMCIQ and LCSA, to deliver the opening remarks. To Miss Professor Dr. Andes Riono.
Yeah. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil alamin. Wa syukurillah, alhamdulillah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, aliyil azim. Good evening, everyone. The first of all, I will say on behalf of the Master and Management Program at Universitas Muhammadiyah Sidoarjo, I would like to warmly welcome to our university and welcome to our discuss again about this one knowledge very important for us. So this night we will talking about this publish with honors according the pitfalls of plagiarism and misconduct. Thank you to our distinguished speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Sof Mahmud Noor from the University of Malaysia, Terengganu. This is really our proud because when we attend to the discuss this night, because we all of us understand because Associate Professor Dr. Afan is really experts when talking about this economic syariah. Yeah. So this topic, I think, is very important for all of us when we as a student or as teachers or academics. Why? Because this night we were talking about this how publication our manuscript and the journal. Why important? Because when we write a manuscript and the journal, we not only put our minds, our academic and our idea, but we can put this value, what kind we can write this manuscript. So this topic really must be understand because this is will be remind us when we writing something must be thinking about this value. Besides that, it is not just the act of copying somebody else's words. This is a fail to acknowledge intellectual ownership in the of the idea, effort, and originally. So let's we learn a lot about this topic from this Associate Professor Dr. Afsofan because he will explain about this how good publication with the ethic. So let us write with integrity, set and with care, and publish with pride. Because knowledge without ethic is empty, and research without honor is forgotten. I hope this session gave us new knowledge and motivation to publish our works ethical and responsibility. Thank you to everyone who helped organize this event, and thank you to all participants attending in this class. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you for the meaningful opening. So Dr. Andes Riono, MMCIQ and LCSA. And then the next main agenda, our guest lecture from University of Malaysia, Terengganu, Associate Professor Dr. Safwan Muhammad Noor. Let me read the profile of Associate Professor Dr. Safwan Muhammad Nur, CQRN, MEM, RFP, and Sharia FP. Born in England, Dr. Safwan is an associate professor of finance at UMC and research associate advisor at Victoria University, Australia. He holds a PhD in finance at Victoria University and Master of Financial Analysis from La Trobe University in Australia. In research, he has published in prestigious journals such as Economic Modeling, Economic Research, Finance Research Letters, Mathematics, Physics, Statistical Mechanics, and its application and research in international business and finance. In recognition of his research, and reviewing excellence, he has received several best paper awards and also fired outstanding contributions in reviewing awards, respectively. In terms of grants, he is the one of the few who have successfully secured research funding across all categories, national, industry, and international grants as the principal investigator. Dr. Sawan has integrates both academic theory and his industry experience into his research and teaching. He has held roles as a research director and financial advisor, financial planner, and dealer with Bursa Malaysia. Previously served as a board member of the Malaysian Financial Planning Council (MFPC). During his tenure in the financial industry, he held three professional licenses issued by Bank Negara Malaysia and Securities Commission Malaysia. Currently holds several reputable distinctions, including Certified in Quantitative Risk Management (CQRM USA), Registered of Financial Planner (RFP), and Sharia RFP Malaysia. In the media, he has been featured in the national media outlets including RTM and Bernama TV, Financial Magazine, and major newspaper as a part of commitment of knowledge transfer. He actively participated in financial literacy initiatives. Recognized his expertise, Dr. Safwan has been appointed as the director and expert speaker by banks, professional bodies, and university and the Ministry of Education in Malaysia for numerous national level financial and investment talk and program. Based on his extensive wide-ranging accomplishment and experience in research, scholarly publication, industry practice, media engagement, and knowledge transfer. Dr. Sawan is widely recognized as one of the nation's foremost authorities in finance and investment. So please welcome to our distinguished guest speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Safwan Muhammad Nur from New Zealand.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yes.
So thank you to MC for the kind introduction, and of course also Prof. Triyono and the university as well, Umsida, for organizing this talk. I'm happy to be here, so I hope maybe we can learn together. Even me myself, actually, I'm also learning many new things. And as a researcher, of course, we know that knowledge is basically boundless, isn't it? So even us, sometimes we also learn things from our student or even our own kids. So it's part of the nature of knowledge. So if I may just quickly share my PowerPoint slides. Okay, just a quick confirmation. Can you see this slide?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay, good. So today we are going to discuss a bit. I mean, I hope we can do this like relaxing environment. other than the strict one-way communication. So if any of you have any question, you are free to ask, right? So my name is Safwan. So I'm actually a certified RFP and Syariah RFP trainer with the MFPC of Malaysia. And of course, the other ones have been kindly introduced by the MC just now. So today we are going to talk a bit about publishing with honor and to avoid pitfalls of plagiarism and academic misconduct. Okay, so before we start, actually, can I request like maybe 2 or 3 minutes from all participants to just very quickly scan this QR. Actually, this same link, there are several sections. So the first section is just a very quick question about the profile, and then followed by the pre-survey question, because I just want to gauge the understanding among participants about research ethics. And then after we finish the talk, and then you can continue with the final section of the this particular short survey. And it's just a very brief question. Don't worry about it. Okay. It's not like I will be asking banking details. Okay. Not scammer here. Don't worry. Okay. So maybe just very quickly, if you can just scan this. Thanks. And fill up the form until the pre-lecture questions only. The post-lecture is, of course, you can do it after we finish the talk.
Kalau semua di scan diisi formnya. Yeah.
Okay, done, is it? Or maybe I'll give another minute, perhaps, yeah?
Okay, maybe 1 minute more.
Okay, 1 minute, sure, sure. 1 or 2 minutes is fine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's a not stress.
Okay. I think all is done, yeah? Anyway, don't worry about it. I mean, you can continue filling up the form while I'm giving the talk. So just a very quick biography, actually. Now, this is actually important because it relates to context of the presentation. So my field, for example, is in finance and investment. So I am also not familiar, for example, if you're talking about research ethics relating to healthcare or counseling or sciences like animals and so on. So because of that, the context is also important. So my area basically focus on the for example, portfolio management, investment strategies, those kind of things. So because of that, the context of my discussion, even though I will also cover the research ethics in general, but the specifics about other fields, I think maybe if we do have some participants from those other fields, you have to double check with the research office. Anyway, okay. So before we start, these are just some of the root causes of misconduct. I'm sure some of you are aware of the misconducts that can happen among researchers, isn't it? Like, for example, some may steal other people's data, steal other people's research, writings, maybe illegally using other people's name. Okay, so there are many different ways of misconduct. So there are several reasons of why this actually happens. So for example, in terms of publish or perish pressure, incentive misalignment. So I just want to ask very quickly, like for example, we do have several participants from different universities here, and obviously different universities, even in Malaysia as well, actually, because universities may have different KPI. So I'm not sure about the universities in Indonesia. I believe it's the same case. In Malaysia, for example, we have like several universities that I can mention, like UITM, me from UMT, and then we have others from UUM, UKM, and so on. Obviously, we can have different requirements for our annual KPIs. And for example, some universities may require lecturers to publish 2 papers in Scopus. Some may be one. Some may be different requirements, like in terms of the quotile and quality and so on, because universities are authorized to set their own KPIs. So I believe Indonesian universities are the same, isn't it? So for example, if you compare University of Indonesia or Universitas Indonesia with UMSIDA, obviously, I would believe there are several differences, right, in terms of the KPI, or is it the same? Anyone from UMSIDA want to share? Or you're not aware of the KPI for other universities? Okay, don't worry about it if you're not aware. Okay. Um, Another thing is lack of mentoring, obviously, especially for new researchers, because perhaps, yeah, let's say if we think in good faith, maybe they don't really know how to do research. What does it mean by research ethics, integrity, and so on, all right? And lack of training as well. So this is important. Inadequate oversight and peer review. You have hyper competition for grants and positions, isn't it? So in some universities, for example, maybe there are limited positions available, all right? Because again, I can't say the same for all universities, but obviously in terms of the funding limitations, perhaps, and reduction of government budget. Okay, so many things can happen. And of course, another one is cultural norms and fear of failure. Okay, so some I know, and of course, I will not mention the name of any country, but of course, the culture of certain countries, maybe they are still very much developing, and in terms of their research ethics or guideline in terms of writings and so on are not really well developed. Okay, so for example, maybe they don't know who are allowed to be a co-author, whether they can, for example, peer review their friends, those kind of things. So why research integrity matters? Of course, the first one is the foundation of scholarly trust and cumulative knowledge, isn't it? So let's say we are making a simple case. I mean, after this, we're going to look into it. But let's say we're talking about research in medics. Now, of course, all of us are still fresh from COVID-19, right? All of us still remember COVID. Okay, so let's say there are cases where scientists from some universities, which are unethical, they just claim let's say some sort of chemicals can fix or can heal COVID, all right? And they manipulate the data, maybe they pay someone to accept the paper, many things, okay, can happen. And then it got published. And then suddenly some companies or some people who don't really understand about the research, maybe they do use those chemical substances in order to heal themselves from COVID, and suddenly they die. For example, this is a very extreme example, but I hope you know why. Okay, why it is actually important, why research integrity is important. Now, of course, in the case of medics, it is very important because you're talking about human life, isn't it? Okay, so it is to maintain institutional reputation and public confidence, right? So obviously, if the university papers, for example, got retracted many times, or if the research is very poor, then ultimately it will, backfire the university's name as well. Okay, it impacts careers. Obviously, if people want to get promoted, recently we had the visit from one of our visiting professors from Australia, Professor Ishak Bati, my old lecturer from Latrobe as well. So he shared some of the promotion criteria, for example, in Australia. Like you need to have, like, for example, several papers published in ABDC. Now, Australia uses a different journal quality, what they call the Australian Business in Council rating. They have like the highest quality is like A-star journal, and then you have the A, B, and C. Now, the more famous one among us Asians are actually Scopus and Web of Science, isn't it? So I'm sure most of you, or if not all, are aware with Scopus database, isn't it? So we have, for example, in Scopus, we have the Scopus quartiles, yeah, Q1 until Q4. Same with JCR or Web of Science as well. But in other countries like Australia or in Europe, they often focus on the ABDC or the ABS, yeah, general rating. And now I heard in the US, they also refer to actually the ABDC general rating as well. But just so you know, yes, Scopus is very important because the university ranking, okay, I'm sure most of you have heard of the QS and Times Higher Education, THE university ranking. They actually refer to Scopus database, not not Clarivate Web of Science. So because of that, Scopus is very, very important, right? Because they use Scopus database in order to rank universities. And it is to protect the scientific record from costly corrections and retractions. Okay, so of course, some of the cases you may have to do some revision. If it is minor, it's fine. But retraction is very bad, isn't it? Especially if it is your, I mean, not when I say you, not specifically you, but us in general, if the researcher's faults, then if the paper is retracted, obviously it will affect the reputation of not only the researcher, but also the university as well. So what is plagiarism? Okay, so in general term, you can say plagiarism is when you use someone else's ideas, words, or data without proper attribution. Now, just so you know, your plagiarism is not only for using other people's work, but also your own previous work, which is what we call the self-plagiarism. So for example, if you publish a paper in journal of A, and then suddenly you want to publish another paper in journal of B, and then you simply copy your work in the previous journal, it is also a plagiarism. You cannot do that. So in terms of misconduct, you have some ideas there. For example, in terms of fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism, obviously, relates to misconduct as well during different stage of the research. So what are the examples of some questionable research practice? Okay, something is wrong. So for example, p-hacking. P-hack, the p-value statistical test. So obviously, there's this is a serious issue because what happens is that people often have this idea that if the result is not statistically significant, then the paper has a lower chance to get published. This is not actually true because not significance is also a result. All right. And it depends on the perspective of, the particular research area and your viewpoint as well. For example, one of my current students research project is about the Islamic finance, Islamic portfolio versus the conventional portfolio. So if there is no statistical difference between the two, for example, because obviously Islamic portfolio, the filter is higher than the conventional, isn't it? Filter means if you want to invest in an Islamic portfolio, there are many more restrictions because as a Muslim, you can only invest in halal or Sharia compliant investments, right? So we cannot invest, for example, in pork business, in this alcohol products, okay, those kind of things. So when you talk about finance specifically, the principle of portfolio diversification, for example, if you have more option, then it allows for a better asset allocation. But if your portfolio is restricted because you're doing more filter, right? You're doing Islamic finance, then obviously you would think that in terms of diversification potential, it is actually lower than the conventional because conventional portfolio you can invest in anything, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether it is halal or haram, pork business, alcohol, gambling, whatever it is. Conventional investment you can do so, but not for Sharia compliant. So obviously you would expect Islamic portfolio might underperform conventional portfolio, isn't it? Now, in this case, however, if the Islamic portfolio is or does not significantly underperform the conventional portfolio, it is actually a good findings because it means then investors don't really have to worry about investing in Islamic portfolio. So that is why I say I just want you to understand this point of view. So it doesn't mean that only statistical significant result is important and publishable. In some cases, like the one that I mentioned just now, the insignificant result is actually preferable. Okay. And then you do like, for example, hypothesizing after results are known. You already know, okay, the result, and then you hypothesize, okay, because you just want to show the reviewer or the reader or to support your study that way, which is again, okay, not a good way to do or a ethical way to do research. So what are the types of plagiarism? So you have one, for example, copying text put forward without quotation. And I find this as a reviewer as well. Sometimes I do notice, sometimes I can see like the structure of the paper, you can see that the author actually comes from, for instance, Asian countries. And then suddenly, certain paragraph, the sentences are very advanced. And then I just simply copy and paste in Google. Already I can see the plagiarism. Okay, so this happens as well. I don't know. I mean, normally it should not pass the editorial office. Okay, but sometimes maybe they overlook it. What happens is that when you submit a paper, then the chief editor or the editorial office would have to check it first, and then once they pass the first screening, and then the editor will then send it for peer review. But sometimes maybe they overlook it. Okay. Patch writing and just saying your own words with someone else's idea or phrases without citation. Again, a citation there. Self-plagiarism, the one that I mentioned earlier, when you use your own previous publication, writings or images and so on without acknowledgement. Paraphrase without attribution. Okay, someone else's idea, you rewrite, but you don't really cite them. Again, this is not right. Yeah. And of course, improper referencing. Now, this is the one that I need to touch a bit, yeah, if I may. I have seen so many papers where they try to paraphrase, oh, sorry, to reference, for example, their supervisors or their friends improperly. Now, when I say improperly, I give you a simple example again, because my context is in finance. That is why it is very important. Earlier I mentioned to you about my background. All right. So basically, how many of you are actually from finance background? But I give a simple example. I think most of you are familiar with Eugene Fama. He's a Nobel Prize winner, yeah. The efficient market hypothesis. Okay, you have the three level of efficiency, the weak form, semi-strong form, and the strong form. Okay, in terms of how the prices of securities, okay, such as the stock market, reflect all available information, whether it's historical data, publicly available information, as well as private data, which is insider information or insider trading. Now, pharma developed those hypotheses, okay, that efficient market hypothesis. Now, let's say, one of you here, let me just call out your name, yeah. This is just an example, by the way, yeah. Don't feel sad. Let's say we are talking about Anang, yeah? Anang Wicaksono here. For example only, yeah. Example. So let's say Anang, yeah, you write a paper and then you mention about the three level of market efficiency, and then you cite my paper. Of course, I do have papers about market efficiency and trading strategies, but when you want to cite the efficiency, you actually refer to my paper. Now, is that a proper referencing? It is actually improper, yeah, because I was not the one, yeah, my paper is not the one who actually introduced it. You have to cite the original source. So if it is about Pharma's paper, cite his paper, not mine. Okay. Now this is important. And of course, another thing is please cite the good journal articles, not the lower rank journal or predatory journals. Please don't do that. Yeah. So please cite a very good journal sources. Now, my apologies. We actually have Azan right now for Isha. So we have a very quick break. Yeah, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes until the Azan is done. Thank you. Okay, thanks for waiting. All right,
Yes.
so again, just very quickly, yeah. So I hope you understand, yeah, what I was talking about just now. So when you want to quote the relevant ideas or findings or theory, you have to really reference the original sources. So that is a proper referencing. So because you cannot really attribute EMH to my paper because I wasn't the one who developed the theory. Okay. So again, sometimes people do this because they want to, for example, increase the citation of their papers. Now it's different to citing some papers because you are referring to the specific ideas or the findings. Yeah, for example, if I do research in Malaysian market and then you want to cite, some investment results in the Malaysian market, then of course it is fine for you to actually cite my paper, example. Okay. So what other misconducts are there apart from plagiarism? Of course, the first one is data fabrication. So you just simply making up data or results. Falsification, you manipulate the research data, equipment, for example, the process, for instance, if you did a different process of, I'm not sure, let's say survey, because again, yeah, I'm not an expert in survey. My research focuses on secondary data. So if you ask me about, the rules of doing survey research, for example, then of course I'm not the right person to answer that question. Okay, but of course we do know like the general stuff like is it good if you, for example, I know some cases where they don't have enough respondents and they simply ask the same respondent to fill up multiple survey form, okay, which is unethical, obviously. I know this because some of them asked me to do the same. Of course, I didn't do it. I said, I already finished the survey. Why should I do it another time? Isn't it? Because it is unethical. All right. Image manipulation, obviously, altering image. Like, for example, in my research, you're going to have something like the historical price pattern, the stock market, for example, or some correlation between colored correlation, for example, between several stocks or several investment instruments. Human cells. Okay, there was this big case as well, I think, published in Good Journal, where actually the authors just simply copy and paste the image of the human cell and use it in another paper, right? In terms of authorship, we have what we call the ghost authorship. Okay, that author which actually contribute to the paper, but his name is not there, for example. Okay, guest or gift, okay, uninvolved, honorary. Maybe he or she isn't really involved in the paper, didn't give any ideas, didn't do corrections, and so on. But maybe you put his name because you want the paper published and so on, which is unethical as well. There was a case I mentioned some of my friends here as well. Actually, it was last year. Yeah? There's a researcher actually from, I don't want to mention the name of the country, from the Middle East, yeah, from Middle East. I didn't even know him, yeah. And suddenly he got my number. He WhatsApp me, yeah, that he was going to submit a paper in a WASP and Scopus Q1 journal, yeah. He was already going to submit it, like I think around 8 o'clock at night, yeah, 8 p.m. Um, and then he suddenly WhatsApp me and he asked that he want to put my name. Oh, I hope I hope this researcher is not one of the participants, by the way. Yeah, sorry, yeah, if you are here. But anyway, from Middle East, yeah, I don't know this guy. He already submitted the paper to a WAS Q1 journal, a very good journal, and he told me that he wanted to put my name as I think the second author or the third author. I said I didn't know him. I never even worked with him before. I've never even seen the paper in my life. I don't know him. I never seen the paper. So I said to him that, you know what, you cannot do this, right? If you want to put my name, I have to ethically be involved in the research as well. At least let me, send the paper first. Let me read, review, give some comments, write a bit, okay? Maybe some any areas, critical flaws or whatever it is. And then, of course, if I agree to be part of the co-authors and if I contributed enough, and then, of course, he can put my name. So obviously, he didn't do that. And I asked him to please, you cannot put my name and just remove my name from the paper because I didn't know that person. I wasn't involved with the research, and it is not right for him to just simply put my name. And of course, yeah, when we talk about this last year as well, I think most of you are aware of this case where there was an Indonesian professor, and I don't have to because you can simply Google it. Illegally use lots of the names. Yeah, I was his biggest victim as well. Yeah, I didn't even know him, and suddenly he put my name in I think 5 or 6 papers, which is unethical as well. So Alhamdulillah, the case was solved and his university already took action. I think he was, I think not to say fired, yeah, temporarily being discharged for I think up to 3 years or something. Because you cannot just simply put other people's name. For example, yeah, can I write a paper and suddenly put your president's name? Of course not, right? If your president is involved in my research, it's fine. Whether it's Saudi king or my prime minister, for example, or sultan, I cannot simply put their name in my papers if they are not involved in the research. Okay, that is unethical. So this is what happened. Last year it was very bad, but Alhamdulillah, it is sorted out. It has received wide attention, covered in CNN,
Ở
Indonesia as well, Tempo magazine, and so on. So it was very,
đợt
very
ba
bad. Come again? Okay. All right. So another one is undeclared conflict of interest, financial or personal interest not disclosed in research. Now, this is wrong as well. For example, you are doing a research, again, I'm talking about finance here. Let's say you receive a grant from, can you name me one of the Indonesian bank? Because I'm opening the slides here. I cannot search from Google. Do you have like Bank Indonesia maybe? Yes? Okay, so it's fine. I'll just open this. from my mobile phone, for example. So let's see, I'll make it really quick, but just so you know the context here. So for example, you have like I don't know, the Bank Mandiri, for example, Bank Mandiri or Bank Rakyat Indonesia or something like that. So let's say they sponsor your research. Okay, they sponsor your research to do comparison about the performance of mutual fund. And then you find that the performance of Bank Mandiri mutual fund is the best. And then you send it for hopefully publication in a journal, but you fail to mention that your research is actually funded by Bank Mandiri. So there might be conflict there, isn't it? Because again, Bank Mandiri sponsor your research, and then you want to publish a paper saying that Bank Mandiri financial product is the best. This is not right, isn't it? So because of that, if you do receive such funding, you must disclose it. All right. Same with medical research. You have many different types of medicines, right? Paracetamol, let's say Panadol companies and so on, right? So of course, if they sponsor you and then suddenly you publish a paper saying that Panadol is the best paracetamol in the world, okay, for example only, So obviously it is unethical if you don't disclose where you actually receive funding from them. So again, there are many issues about integrity, not only plagiarism. Okay. So you have paper mills and fake peer review. This is another thing. I think recently I forgot one of the big publisher. I can't remember. After this, we can see from the Retraction Watch maybe where they did fake peer review. Sometimes they use fictitious email address. Okay, and they were actually the one who reviewed their own paper, for example. But now many of the big publishers they don't really allow this because when you want to assign potential or not to assign but to nominate, to nominate potential reviewers who have no conflict of interest with you, they have to have official, for example, organization or university email addresses, right? So, for example, if I want to nominate Prof. Triyono, for example, to be a reviewer of my paper, not only Prof. Triyono have to be an expert in my research area, okay, he must have no conflict of interest with me. For example, we never publish paper together and so on. And I must provide his official email address. For example, at .ac.id, perhaps, Okay, so something like that. Not at google.com, for example, which is not allowed. All right. So there are several frameworks actually for publication ethics and integrity. The COPE, Committee on Publication Ethics. We have this journal, ICMJE authorship criteria. We're going to go through this after this, Singapore, for example, have their own statement of research integrity. Universities, of course, I'm sure your university also have some guidelines, same as our university here. And of course, we have some general policies too, in terms of ethics. So what we're going to do very quickly, retraction is very bad, isn't it? Okay, when the paper is, for example, found to have some integrity issue, maybe some falsification or fabrication of data and so on. So the paper may be retracted by the journal. So yeah, we're going to go through this very quickly. So again, if you have any question, please let me know. I'm going to open the website, by the way, Retraction Watch. Obviously, this is the most famous website, basically, for journal retraction. All right. Can you see this page? Yes? Yes, okay, good. So Retraction Watch here has been cited by many top tier journals as well. I believe even Nature also cited this website. So you can see, for example, these are some of the cases of retraction to yes, to here. So you can see cases, for example, director candidate wants to open respectful post-publication. Okay, this one is fine. Author is rejecting 3 papers for concept that violates the law of thermodynamics. The journal will be retracting, withdrawing the paper. So, for example, your paper is already published. Now, it is no longer published, and they remove it. Okay. Integrity index. So you can see many things here, Forced retraction for Italian scientists comes 11 years after Sluice flag paper. So you can see here. So retraction will affect your reputation as well. So there are many cases of retraction. There are many reasons for it. But I just want to show you very quickly. For example, if you go here, because you can see by category of the country. So when you type by country, for example, Malaysia, you can see this case here. Again, this is not, my choice. When you type the country, you can see the case. And of course, this is the case which affected many of the Malaysian researchers. I don't want to go through them again, but you can read them on your own. Okay. So these are some cases. Energy researcher up to 18 retractions. Can you just imagine that? 18 papers. Retraction again. Your papers have already been published. And then they found some problem with it. They will be removing those papers. Okay, deleting those papers from the journal. So you don't want this, isn't it? It will greatly affect your reputation as a researcher. Publisher retract 2 papers, for example. Okay, you can see there are many, many cases here. All right. So one way to boost your uni ranking, ask faculty to cite each other. Is this ethical? Can you, okay, for example, the dean of UMSIDA, for example. For example, only here, please don't misquote me or misunderstood my example here. Okay, let's say the dean simply asks the lecturers, all of the lecturers in the faculty, to cite his or her paper to increase citation. Is that an ethical practice or not? Of course not, right? You cannot ask or force other people to cite your papers. Okay, it's haram as well, In Islam, of course, it is haram, You cannot do that. So what happens is you cannot do that. If those researchers are doing the exact, or similar research area, for example, and they want to cite it, it's fine. But you cannot force he or she to cite your paper, It is a wrong practice, You cannot do that. Now, let's say we talk about, because this is organized by Indonesia. So let's say we go through Indonesia, by country. So these are just some error. Can do they need? Okay, let me just find out. It's not because Indonesia has no retraction, Okay. So let's say we go through this and then we type Indonesia, see how things go. The country, dean, the cases were, okay, let me just open this very quickly. Indonesia, All right. So by country, Indonesia. So you can see the case here. You can see under scrutiny, all right? Some of the research areas are being, but there are many cases here. Very, very interesting, So again, Now, there are several reasons for this, One is because there are perhaps very small numbers of cases of retraction or academic integrity issue. The next one is, of course, because there are lacks of awareness and reporting. So that is why there are not many cases. Now, I am inclined to say the latter because we do have, from the previous case, we had a visit from the Indonesian ministry as well, which then we heard from other researchers and my friends too from Indonesia, which confirmed that actually because not many are actually aware of the integrity issues, and they're starting to build up their knowledge about this issue. So that is one of the reasons, perhaps. But integrity aside, when you have such scandal, you see, I just typed here suicide. The reason is there are many cases of pressure among academicians, and you can see here, for example, senior Riken scientist involved in stem cell commits suicide because he was facing disciplinary measures. Can you see this? Maybe I'll just enlarge it a bit. Okay, you see? Commit suicide, yeah? Suicide means bunuh diri, yeah? I don't know. In Indonesia, is it the same? Bunuh diri? Kill yourself, yeah? So, yeah, suicide. See this one, Dan Markinson, yeah? Who died by suicide in an ethically controversial psychiatric research study again, all right? Marquette University PhD student committed suicide in his own research lab after spending 3 nights doing research. You have the video here, yeah? Why researchers are committing suicide. Please don't kill yourself. And as a Muslim, you know it is haram, yeah? You will not, taste heaven, yeah? Please don't do that, Do not taste paradise. Professor Mike Adams, yeah? More than 5 months since former University of North Carolina, Wilmington, killed himself. You see here, yeah? There are many cases. A medical professor at Imperial College London. Imperial College London is a very good university, one of the top universities in the world. Medical professor committed suicide. So again, I want to stress the importance of research integrity. I'm not saying that he was not integrity. Okay, some may commit suicide because of pressure or some other factors, but there are cases where your reputation is damaged, for example, or maybe some of the cases where the researchers actually, engage in unethical practice and they were caught red-handed maybe, and because they can't handle the humiliation, okay, malu, yeah, humiliation, and then maybe they commit suicide. So we don't want to, we don't want to listen to those cases, isn't it? It's not good, and hopefully such cases do not happen in our country, yeah. Auzubillah, yeah, hopefully. And but I need to emphasize this, yeah, because it is a very serious issue. So please, yeah. So how do you avoid this? Of course, you need to be ethical, right? Okay. All right, we're going to continue very quickly here with the presentation. I think because we are running out of time. So I'll just go very fast here. But hopefully I won't miss any important stuff. So we do have some detection tools. Like I'm sure most of you are familiar with Turnitin, right? So we can check for plagiarism. And of course, nowadays we have generative AI, things such as DeepSeek or ChatGPT. So again, there are cases of potential AI plagiarism. All right. So obviously, some journals, some of the good publishers, they provide guidelines of how you can use AI and you have to declare them. All right. Ultimately, authors remain responsible. You cannot blame AI. Yeah. So let's say if the reviewer found some errors in your statements, you cannot say, oh, this is actually not my mistake. This is ChatGPT's mistake. You cannot do that, right? So there are certain requirements of how you can use AI, what form of things that you can use AI for, and so on. So you can use it as a drafting aid, of course, but you cannot do it, use it as, for example, your co-author or do the whole writing, for instance. And obviously, you have to double check your references and paraphrasing, yeah. So in terms of data management, now again, yeah, I have to highlight on this, especially for research such as finance, my area. The first one is, of course, in terms of the FAIR principles, it must be findable. Okay, data must be findable, accessible, interpretable, and reusable. So people can actually double check. Yeah. So for example, if I say I analyze Jakarta stock exchange data from 2000 until 2024, end of 2024, and I found this sort of results. So other researchers should be able to use the same exact data, use my same exact method, and found the same exact findings. So that is how research should be done, right? So there are some other things now in terms of, like I said, yeah, pre-registration and so on. This is again not my area. Repositories, obviously, it depends. Yeah, again, because some of the data are not publicly available, so maybe you cannot really share them. For example, if you obtain the data from Bloomberg or DataStream, again, yeah, for finance, yeah, historical data, you cannot simply then share the data elsewhere. In terms of lab and consent and confidentiality and shared data set. So you have to get consent, yeah, for example, especially if you're doing survey, for instance, yeah, if you have the names, uh, you have to get their consent to share the data because otherwise it will affect their anonymity, isn't it? Survey should be anonymous, for example, yeah. So in terms of review and compliance, you have to obtain approval for human study. There's a typo there, should be animal welfare. And registration, I don't know why. Okay, I think maybe when I remove some parts, I mistakenly remove this one as well. Informed consent and privacy. PDPA means the Personal Digital Protection Act. For example, your in Malaysia, I'm sure in Indonesia it's the same thing, where you have your identification card, yeah, your IC number, and so on. That one is actually confidential. Data sharing and material transfer agreements. Now, in terms of journal and publisher, of course, editorial screening is important because they will check first. They have all the software authenticate, the turn in and so on. And then they can double check image. They can see whether there are some form of manipulation or if it is clear or not. Now, there is a growing trend of having a transparent peer review and open reviewer. So you can see, especially the most famous one. I know that this one is actually blacklisted by the Indonesian government, Frontiers Journal. I would personally say, because I have seen the paper, there are some Nobel Prize winners as well. I would not say that it is predatory, far from it. Yeah. But anyway, I will not be commenting on that. But what I want to say is that for Frontiers Journal, you can see the papers. You can also see the reviewer's name, actually. So you know that basically it shouldn't be predatory, right? So technically, the paper reviewers are there. You know who actually double checked your paper, who commented your papers, and so on. The name of the reviewers are actually there. Now, predatory means what? You pay for the paper, basically it is accepted, you don't know who published. Okay, basically you pay, guarantee publish. So that is why, personally, my own experience, I would not say these journals are actually predatory. If you want to say these journals are expensive, yeah, I think that is fine if you think it is expensive. But is it predatory? I don't think so. Journals such as Frontiers, MDPI, and so on. I even have papers rejected from these publishers, yeah. So that is why I know. I've been the reviewer as well, actually. So I will not say they are predatory, but you can say it is expensive. That is fine. But predatory actually means a different meaning. Correction, expression of concern, for example, if there are certain things that you have to improve or fix. Post-publication updates is there as well. Sometimes you can see several version after the paper has been published, yeah, actually. So this is a trend as well. And of course, you have to have whistleblower protections. For example, let's say you know that your dean or your rector or vice chancellor are engaging in malpractice, for example. Steal your data, for example. This is a bad example, but just so you know. So of course, when you want to report it, you have to have whistleblower protection, right? Otherwise, then you might be penalized for that. And of course, you have to do it in a proper way and proper channel as well. Some support from institutional bodies. So you have the office, like I mentioned earlier, some training modules, okay, to help the researchers, especially the early career ones, to understand more about research ethics and so on. Mentoring programs is another good way, like, maybe you have the associate professors and professors maybe mentoring the junior staff. Clear disciplinary procedures and sanctions. So, for example, if you steal other people's name, so maybe your university will penalize you, fire you from your position, ask you to apologize, and so on. And of course, you have to provide a safe channel for reporting concerns. It is wrong, for example, if you are the victim and you have done the reporting in a proper way and proper channel, and suddenly you are penalized for that. That is unethical. Okay, so the institution have to support you if you do it in the right way. Now, as a researcher, what do you have to do? Obviously, you have to keep all the record and versions, all the papers, yeah. For example, if someone else claim that actually you steal the papers, at least you have the proof that actually no, this is actually your work, all right? And you cannot claim otherwise. For example, whenever I do research with my co-authors, I actually prefer sharing the file via emails. Okay, WhatsApp is fine, but email is safer. So for example, if I send my draft to another co-author, I'm not really worried that my co-author will steal it. Okay, if it is, I mean, I choose my co-authors as well. I trust my co-authors, which are the good ones and so on. But if, let's say, in worst case scenario, he steal my work and claim it as his own work, I have the email proof, isn't it? I can show to the publisher that, you know what, I can send all this proof that this is actually my work. I send my email, my work to him on this date and so on. So I have all the proof. So that is why I prefer to share my work via email. In order for you to cite properly, I would strongly advise you to use reference managers, EndNote, Mendeley, Zotero, all right? So I prefer Mendeley because it is free actually. EndNote you have to pay, unless you're using Captain Jack Sparrow version, yeah, please don't do that, yeah. But yeah, Mendeley is free. You have to paraphrase, quote, and cite correctly. You have to check first for similarity, yeah. I have some of my um co-authors here as well, yeah, where we have done some papers together, good researchers too, yeah. And of course, what happens is that normally we will check first for potential plagiarism. And then after that, if we find that 30 in level, the similarity is low, and then we're going to submit for journal consideration. And of course, you can also consider peer feedback. So for example, if you have done some paper and you think you want to ask for my opinion, and then it's fine. But again, like I say, yeah, please send it to a trustworthy person because you don't know, some people, they might steal your work and ideas, isn't it? So send it to a trustworthy person. For example, if you send it to me, if I don't contribute enough, I only give you some ideas. Maybe you just want to acknowledge my assistance, it's fine. If I contribute a lot, maybe you want to invite as a co-author, it's fine as well. But you cannot simply just put my name. That is wrong, yeah? Without my participation, that is wrong. Right? Okay. So some very quick checklist before submission. You have to check for similarity, make sure all the data and analysis are reproducible. Now, I do have to highlight on this, by the way, yeah. If you do some analysis, for example, if you use neural networks, maybe this is a bit tricky because it doesn't mean that every time your result will be exactly the same, but more or less similar, by the way, yeah. It will not be exactly the same. And it is quite difficult for you to check because it's a black box, yeah. So authorship order agreed and documented. So when you want to start your project initially at the start, this is what I do with my co-researchers as well. We agree at the start of the project that who will be the main author, who will be the corresponding author, who will be the third, fourth, last, whatever it is. We agree at the start of the project. We don't want any dispute later on. Okay, we don't want like we do the paper and suddenly at the end, oh no, I want to be the main author, the first author, and then other people say, no, I should be the main author. No, we don't want that. So before we start the project, we already agree the authorship order. All right, ethical approvals, you must mention, disclosure statements must be there as well. Figures cannot be altered unless for clarity. For example, you just want to increase the clarity in terms of the line, some smudges and so on. And funding and conflicts must be clear. Okay, so finally, integrity underpins credible scholarship. So you must understand that research is not only about the writing, about doing the analysis, doing the conclusion, proper referencing, and so on. Overall integrity is also important in terms of the citation, in terms of paraphrasing, in terms of citing the appropriate references, okay, and other things that we discussed earlier. Make sure you understand and avoid plagiarism. You must use available tools, okay, and frameworks. Now this is another important thing, openness and mentorship. Again, like I said, yeah, don't be shy. Okay, if you have any question, you can ask your co-authors or you can ask your mentors, yeah, the senior professor, for example, or associate professor to help you with your research. And ultimately, yeah, whatever you do, your reputation is the most important. Once you are found guilty, for example, of plagiarism, it's in the web, isn't it? Everything is there. Search your name and you might find your name, for example, if you have done something wrong, some unethical practice, and people would know already that you have done this, stealing other people's work or plagiarism and so on, or stealing other people's name, isn't it? It's there in Google. So please make sure that you have to safeguard your reputation. You must publish with honor. Okay? And of course, as a Muslim, please, we do, whatever we do is actually part of ibadah as well, isn't it? We don't want to do haram things. We don't want to do things unethically because it will be sinful as well, yeah, berdosa. Okay. So I guess that's all from me. Thank you. So sorry to keep you waiting. Hopefully we are still on time. I can't see my clock here, but I hope everything is in order. So yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much for Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Saufan Muhammad Nur for this church's presentation. And next is Q&A session. So we will, if you any question, feel free to raise your hand or type them in the Zoom chat.
Okay, thank you, Professor Fan Muhammad Nur. This is really exciting about your material. Really, really exciting because there
Thank
are a
you.
lot of
Most welcome, Prof.
knowledge how to writing well, yeah. Okay, so far, among of the material, I am really attention about this type of plagiarism. In our country, in my country, Indonesia, you know this. Maybe 1 year ago, there are a lot kind of the plagiarism in our researchers. So, in the Malaysia, when you explain about this some of researcher in the another country, we also find this condition plagiarism. Right now, we know there are a lot of some software AI that can be help those plagiarism. So, what your opinions? Actually, between ethic and then between integrity and then with a lot so on about this factor. If we related about this AI, if we must harness to use AI, but not really tell to another person, or we just wait about this manuscript where we writing. This is just discussed from someone, not I'm asking, but discuss because some of my students sometimes they confused about this uh, how to put the ethic about this writing manuscript and as a student like this one again. Before I'm offered to my student, maybe Prof. Salvan give me tips of some way how this manage this competition. Thank you, Professor Wan.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. That's a very good question actually, because especially, uh, we cannot deny the importance of AI. Okay, so if we don't really use AI, then we'll be fall behind actually. So because of that, I also actually advise my students using AI, like ChatGPT, for example. But they have to use it ethically. For example, if they need some ideas, they can ask ChatGPT. I myself actually, I just want to share. I subscribe to the ChatGPT, so I have to pay about 25 US dollar or so monthly. And it's a very, very good investment, I would say, because sometimes even us as a researcher, sometimes we need some quick information about materials and so on, even in my finance area as well. But what I will do after that is obviously in terms of information gathering, I would then simply double check because sometimes they got it wrong as well. Not sometimes actually, a lot of times they got it wrong. So we must double check. That is the first thing. The second thing is, of course, how we use AI. For example, if you use Word, and then if we type any paragraph, for example, of course, the Word can detect some spelling errors, some grammatical errors. Okay. Now, ChatGPT, for example, you can just simply copy and paste in ChatGPT and ask them to limit their editing to only in terms of the grammatical errors and English and sentence structure and so on without paraphrasing. So that is still considered fine actually. And even journals policy, they would allow because if you use ChatGPT for that, for example, it is not really asking them to prepare the whole paragraph or sentences. It is actually your own ideas. They just want to fix a bit. Now, having said that, we have to be careful as well because Turnitin, for instance, they have the AI detection mechanism now. There was a case recently where a researcher, I think his thesis was published. He's a medical student. If I'm not mistaken, his thesis was published in 2004 or something like that. It's a big issue actually. And when they put it in the Turnitin, they detect it as AI generated text, which is very funny because his thesis was actually in 2004 or something like that. There was no generative AI using that time. So they can give false alarm too. So that is why for most journals, AI detection is only to like a general guideline. It's not like a final decision. They say, okay, if it flags as AI, they will reject the paper. No. But still, we can really see actually the structure of AI. I'm sure, yeah, Prof, you can see your student writing, for example, yeah. For example, what you can do is maybe you can ask your student to write first on the piece of paper in your class, no internet connection, cannot use the phone, and then you can see their writing. I'm sure you can differentiate their own writing with suddenly the very impressive writing from ChatGPT. Okay, so we can actually detect it just like that. But to say that you cannot use ChatGPT, of course not. I actually advise my student to use ChatGPT, but to use it ethically. And there are certain guidelines that you can actually search. If you are concerned about research or publication, um, for example, Elsevier, they give some guidelines as well, and you have to do a declaration, a statement, yeah, saying that okay, you use ChatGPT to help with the, for example, paraphrasing or something. Okay, there's a question there. Is there any specific software that can check or trace articles that is generated from? Yes, Turnitin is one of them. Turnitin, yeah. So I can just type it very quickly. Turnitin.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Sopan.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Maybe I'm offer to the my student. Please, if you want to ask a photo, Prof. So this guy who is Albia first. Let this first one say. That is first Albia, and then the second. Kelas pelan, kelas tapi pelan ngomongnya. Ya, enggak.
Okay, my name is Ardia. I want to ask, writing academia while avoiding plagiarism can be challenging, especially when certain terms must be used as they are. I want to ask to Mr. Sopan, what strategy can be used to avoid plagiarism when writing academic papers, especially when we use common words such as qualitative, research, sample, population, or data analysis, which are difficult to paraphrase without change their core meaning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That is actually a good question as well. So what happens is that there are certain common terms that even if it is detected by Turnitin, normally this will be handled by the editorial office. So for example, if or even your supervisor as well. So let's say, yeah, you talk about finance. A standard term is something like high risk would link with high return, for example. So obviously that is a standard statement, right? So because of that, if you use that, maybe Tenim will detect it, maybe not. But of course, as a reviewer or the editorial office, they can detect it that this is actually a standard sentence. They can just simply in the Tenim software, by the way, they can just click it and remove it from the similarity count. So you don't really have to worry about it. All right. But I do want to emphasize another thing, yeah, about referencing. Because what happens is that when you want to reference general stuff, you don't have to cite. For example, if I want to say Malaysia and Indonesia are neighboring countries and part of Asian, I don't have to cite, for example, Sri Yono 2023. No, because it is a general statement, isn't it? Okay. A general statement shouldn't be cited. And I have seen this many times where people they want to cite. No, do not cite general statement. For example, if you want to cite something like global financial crisis, okay. But if you want to emphasize on the specifics, let's say global financial crisis has led to a certain percentage decline in the US stock market, while the Malaysian stock market suffer by certain percent. Then of course you may have to, you may have to cite. But if it is still general and you can find it easily from Google, you don't even have to cite that one. So it depends, citation. But if you want to cite a very specific ideas or findings from research, then you have to do that. Yeah, proper citation depends on journal. Maybe they use Harvard, maybe they use AGPS, or APA is of course the most famous citation style, APA. So yeah, okay. So I hope that helps as well.
Okay, thank you a lot, Bro Safwan. It really helped me to understand things more clearly. Thank you.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, the second question, please. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. Professor, I want to have something. I still don't understand the reasoning behind the self-plagiarism concept. Like, what is the parameter that we are called self-plagiarizing? Since, like, in the paper that we write on our own, we still citing or referencing from a lot of sources. And then and then also like I still don't get about the reasoning behind it because like we are referencing from ourselves. Like could you please explain it in more detail? Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thanks. Good question as well. So when you do research, actually, you have to separate yourself, the author, from the paper. Okay, so that is the first thing. Now, even if you want to refer to what you have done in the past, you must properly cite it. Okay, so let's say you publish a paper with Prof. Suyono. Just a simple example, yeah? And then after that, you publish a paper with Zumratul Islamiyah there. Okay, so if you want to use some of the materials from your paper with Prof. Suyono, do you think you can just simply write it, or copy the same exact paragraph in your paper with Zumratul? Of course not, isn't it? Because that is plagiarism. Your work with Prof. Sriyono, let's say published in the Journal of Finance, for example, it is published there, and you have to understand another thing is in terms of copyright. Yeah, when you publish the paper there, Journal of Finance, for example, is not open access. Okay, so they will own the copyright. So when you want to cite something, when you want to use the material there, you must paraphrase them properly. Because again, like I said, you must separate yourself as an author with the paper, right? So when you want to, otherwise it is very easy, right? So you can just simply copy and paste everything. Yeah? Let's say you do a paper about um, stock market performance in Indonesia, okay, from 1990 until 2000, paper one. And then now you want to do a second paper for stock market performance from 2001 to 2010. You cannot simply just copy and paste everything, yeah, from paper one, introduction and literature review, for example. You copy everything and paste in paper two. Don't change anything, and then simply you want to publish. No, it is wrong, right? Because by logic as well, you know that it is wrong, isn't it? But if you want to use the same material, the same references, or even your same idea, but you paraphrase them properly. Paraphrase means you change, yeah, the writing and so on. But if you get the idea from your previous paper, let's say if you want to compare the performance now with the paper one, then you have to cite your paper one. So just simply cite your name and Sri Yono, for example, 2014, explore Indonesian stock market from 1990 until 2000, found, the Indonesian market works well or is quite resilient against Asian financial crisis, for example, or whatever result. But you must cite, even though it is your own paper, all right? You cannot simply just copy and paste. You cannot self-plagiarize. Okay, so I hope that is clear.
Thank you, Professor, for the answer.
Yeah, most welcome.
Another question. Okay. For this set this idea so far.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask to Mr. Safian how to maintain the reputation and public trust because many lecturers and employers have different behavior. Thank you.
Um, Sorry, I didn't get your question just now. What was it again?
How to maintain the institution reputation and public trust because many lecturers and employers have different behavior.
Okay. All right, thanks. So now this is tricky actually. So the first thing is, of course, if you want to talk about your own individual reputation, then the first thing is obviously you have to work ethically, right? In terms of the research, in terms of the citation, in terms of how you conduct the literature review, introduction, your writings, and so on. Those things that we have discussed earlier. Now, if you want to talk about your own publication, then you must keep in mind as well that normally, even me myself, yeah, I don't think I ever publish alone except for conference papers. I always have co-authors. If you see my paper, yeah, I always publish with some of my, research colleagues. Now, of course, one of the things that you have to do is obviously you must make sure you have a very good collaborators. You understand? You don't want to work with some, dodgy researchers, someone with questionable research practice, isn't it? Because then, if he does something wrong, then it will, of course, indirectly affect your reputation as well. So please choose it's like you're choosing your friend, right? Who asked the question just now? Can you please quickly raise your hand? The one who, oh, you, okay. So the next to you, the black hijab, yeah, the black hijab and white shirt. Is she a good friend or not? Oh, she doesn't want to answer, yeah? Hopefully she's a good friend, yeah?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that, so now they are fighting now, yeah? So now I'm just kidding there. So what I'm saying is that same as how you want to choose your friends, how you want to choose your life partners, for example, your husband, your wife, and so on, you must choose your co-authors properly too. Okay? Please don't collaborate with someone who have a very bad reputation, who have already plagiarized papers, who have, issues, stealing people's name, for example. Otherwise, it may affect their reputation as well. So that is one of the ways that you can safeguard. Ultimately, because you don't know, maybe you all think he's nice or not nice. Of course, berserah as well, right? Doa dan tawakal. Of course, as a Muslim, you know this, right? So you just make, doa that everything goes well and Allah protects you from this problem and hopefully dijauhkan ya daripada masalah insyaAllah. So you have to do your part in terms of writing and so on, but ultimately you have to do some prayers as well, make doa, insyaAllah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you, Professor. I think actually there are a lot of my students will be asking because the time is open. Maybe the next time, yeah, maybe I will invite Professor again, and we will discuss about another topics to the UPSIDA. Maybe if we have opportunity, we can invite Billy to the UPSIDA, not in the online system. Thank you, Mr. Again, proceed.
Thank you, Prof.
Mr. Sofwan, is there any question is from YouTube? Is the use of AI the present time if inevitable to help create works such as article, final assignment for each level of education, books, and so on? And then another question is, how are the tips and tricks to make our article or works attractive to reviewers then? Thank you.
Sorry, how are the word to do what? The last question just now?
The next question is, how are the tips and tricks to make our articles or work attractive to reviewers?
Okay. That's a good question too, yeah. So as a reviewer, yeah, I have rejected many papers too. And the first thing, right, before sorry, before I talk about the contributions and so on, the first thing that we need to understand is that the very first thing that a reviewer see, can you tell me what it is? When you submit a paper, the very first thing that a reviewer will see, I mean, the figures and everything is there later on, isn't it? Once you read through the method, the results discussion. But the very first thing that a reviewer will see, what is it? It's English, actually. Your writing. Yes. If the first, let's say, the title alone is academically or grammatically wrong, plural, singular, past tense, present tense is already wrong, I will reject the paper immediately. Do you know why? Because if the researcher cannot do even the writing correctly, how can I be confident that the analysis, let's say they are doing, like some of my collaborators here as well, study about portfolio optimization, connectedness analysis, for example. How can I be confident that their analysis, their MATLAB coding, Python, whatever, is correct, right? So yeah, English is very important because your papers or even your thesis, yeah, I told my students as well, when they do research, the whole PhD thesis or master thesis, I would say 99% is actually writing, isn't it? And only small parts are actually the figures, the formula, data analysis. 95 to 99% are actually writing. So if the writing is very poor, then of course it will affect everything. That is the first thing. And of course, another thing, if you're talking about the writing, it's perfect in terms of contribution, obviously. So the contribution means the study is very, very important, timely. They use a very good, robust method. Okay, it must have a, I mean, let's say if you want to analyze stock market performance or do some investment analysis, if you do regression analysis, of course, I will reject the paper immediately. But if you use like, technical analysis, if you use particle swarm optimization, then it is interesting, right? Because it is timely, it is state of the art method, right? Correct method is also important. In terms of the data, it must be relevant. This is another thing that I want to say. I had a paper rejected by a very top journal as well, simply because I analyzed Malaysian data. Yes, because the chief editor said that their focus, their main interest is actually in the US or European data. So this is another thing, yeah. So you have to know your target journal. Don't send your paper to, for example, Journal of Finance, Journal of Portfolio Management, if you study Malaysia or Indonesian data. Most probably they will reject it. You can send it to such other journals, such as Journal of Asian Economics or Pacific Basin Finance Journal. They look into Asian data. So you have to be smart about, your target journal. All right. Now, again, in terms of the method, in terms of the sufficient data being used, in terms of some robustness analysis, okay? So I can't generalize my area to others, but for example, in my field, if I use some technical analysis, let's say Bollinger Bands, for example. So normally I will check using different parameters. And sometimes I use, for example, Monte Carlo analysis, okay, for robustness. So, like I said, the theory must be strongly funded as well. The method must be robust. English, of course, very, very important, yeah, English. Um, Literature review, by the way, yeah. Literature, you must make sure that it is very recent. Normally, a journal would ask you to cite the most recent 5 years. I repeat, yeah, the most recent 5 years. So now it is 2025. So roughly 21 or even 20 is fine. Not all, by the way, yeah. I have to highlight this, yeah. It doesn't mean that all of your references must be from 2021 to 2025 only. No. It must mean that most of your references are from the most recent years. Okay. And like I said earlier, make sure the references come from good journals. Don't cite the predatory ones. Okay. Cite the very good journals published by a reputable publisher. And I personally, and I've published with some of the collaborators here as well. Like I said, yeah, I disagree perhaps with some of the suggestions maybe who say that these publishers are predatory or not. You have to be smart and determine whether these publishers are good enough, whether they are cited by Scopus and so on. But I do advise you to submit your journal to Scopus Index only, yeah. And the reason is, like I said earlier, it will help you in terms of your research profile, and also it will help your university as well in terms of university ranking, because universities refer to Scopus database for their ranks. Even OMSIDA as well. Yeah, if it is ranked, I'm not sure about your university if it is ranked by QS and Times Higher Education, but QS and THE refers to Scopus database, yeah. So try to publish in Scopus index journals. Early career researcher, maybe you can find like, is it called Sinta, right? Sinta journal, isn't it?
Yes, we call it Sintan.
Yeah, so maybe early career researchers you can publish in Sinta journal. But once you get more experience, please target Scopus journal. You don't want to publish in a lower quality journal. Yeah? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sofwan. And then, ladies and gentlemen, We have now come to end of today's international guest lecture. On behalf of the organizing committee, we want to express our deepest gratitude to our keynote speaker, our guest lecturer, and all the participants, both on-site and online, for making this event meaningful and successful. We hope today's lecture has given you new insight and inspired you to uphold academic integrity in your work. Once again, thank you and have a great evening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Sorry, very quick one. My apologies.
Thank
I
you
forgot.
also.
Please, whoever who haven't finished the survey just now, because there's another. It's the same link, but after you answer the section, and then you can answer the post lecture. The survey just now, the link.
Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Thanks a lot, by the way, to MC and Prof. Sriyono, Mr. Yani as well, Mr. Yani who
Mr. Yani still attended this class. Yeah, thank you for so fun. Yeah, thank you.
thank you, and thank
Yeah,
you as well to
Yeah.
Dr. Wisnu,
Yeah, thank you for your attend
my
this
old
class.
friend. Okay, thank
Thank
you
you,
then. Have a
Mister.
nice day. Take care and assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you so much, Mister.
Ayo, ayo telepon dulu ya. Mas, pengator. Betul. Betul. Satu suka bisa terjadi testimoni ya. Nah, mau testimoni sama kita. Aduh, ini malah itu kita lagi kecil-kecilan nih. Ayo, alhamdulillah. Boleh, iya. Iya, tapi testimoni. Kalau ada testimoni, gimana? Ini Mas. Sini ya.